Good evening, everyone. Good, that is working. Welcome to the Raise.dev Hacktoberfest Help Desk. My name is Joe, and I'm the community manager here at Raise.dev. Very excited to be here on this, actually, to be honest with you, quite miserable and dreary Wednesday afternoon here in Amsterdam. But we're going to have fun here today on the show. So for those of you who are new to the show, as I said, this is the Raise.dev Hacktoberfest Help Desk. What does that mean? What are we here to do? This show is going to be live 3 times daily throughout October. We are here to help you have a happy and successful Hacktoberfest. Hacktoberfest being a celebration of open source brought to you by our friends at DigitalOcean. And during Hacktoberfest, people try to contribute to open source as much as they can in pursuit of pieces of fabric, essentially, but also trees this year, so that's fun. So we are here to help you be successful in open source, and that is either through answering your open source questions that you can submit to our help desk site at raise.dev/hacktoberfest, or that is through talking about topics that are useful to you in your open source journey. We've been doing a lot of that this week. Early in the week we heard from Floordries, we spoke about documentation. Today we had Penelope Fippenon to talk about Ruby format, and we got really deep into some wild Ruby code, so that was a lot of fun. And today we have another wonderful guest joining us to talk about communities that surround open source and how they are beneficial to your journey, as well as the code itself. So if you're interested in any of in what we've got going on outside of this particular show right now, the other shows we've got going on in the week, you can find our full schedule at twitch.tv RaiseDev's schedule. That is updated weekly, so currently it has our schedule through to the rest of this week, so that's Thursday and Friday. This is our last show today. At the end of this show, I'll go through who some of those guests are for the rest of the week as well. We've got a very C-heavy show tomorrow, lots of C stuff going on tomorrow. So I'll get into that at the end of the show. But for right now, the final thing I have to go through is who are Raise.dev. Why are we doing this? Why do we want to help you this Hacktoberfest? Well, our mission here at Raise.dev is to help developers level up in their careers, whether it's your first job, you're trying to get your second job, you're changing careers, you're trying to get promotion, anything like that. Our mission is to get you the experience you need so that you can make that jump. So right now, whilst we're in early access, we launched just last week. We're just over a week old. Very exciting. Whilst we're in early access right now, you can sign up for free at raise.dev to get matched with a wonderful and experienced coach who will help you along the way to your career goals and ambitions. So I think, hey, Matt's here and hasn't got himself banned. Oh, thank you for reminding me, Matt. Links and URLs are very welcome. If you've got something cool to share related to what we're talking about, please do share it. However, the internet is a terrible and scary place, so our moderation bot is a little finely tuned. If you have a link you want to share, let me know in the chat by @raise devs. Just give me a warning like, hey, can I post a link? I'll then add you to the allow list to post that link so that you don't get banned. Currently, I think our ban record holder is Matt. We had to VIP Matt so he would stop getting himself banned. That is the level we're operating at in moderation here on this chat. So please do let me know, because it makes me so sad when someone trying to help ends up with that 5-second timeout. So, cool. Let's get on with the show. So I'm very happy to add to the stage Mr. Andrew Seward. Welcome, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, good. More chipper than I should be for this time of night in Amsterdam. Oh, Matt just got himself banned. Matt, why? Anyway, welcome to the show. Do you want to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yes. So my name's Andrew Seward. I am the founder of Tech Nottingham and Hack24. Tech Nottingham is a community organisation based in Nottingham, and our mission is to make Nottingham a better place to live and work in technology. And we do that with events and projects, and we host a popular online community which everyone is welcome to join, even if they are afflicted by not living in Nottingham.
Nottingham.
We also have a popular Hacktoberfest channel on there as well for people wanting to support people who are wanting to get involved. I'm also head of data product development at Experian as well in my real life.
Yeah, outside of the wonderful community things. Perfect. So I want to spend a lot of time talking about Tech Nottingham, as I've ranted and raved at the episodes before whilst talking about the fact you were coming up this evening. Tech Nottingham is one of my favourite tech communities, and like the activities it does and the range of them and how welcoming and lovely that community is. And that's not just studying in Nottingham bias. It is a genuinely wonderful place. So we've been talking a lot about that, and also I know you wanted to talk more generally about the place for in tech communities in open source and how they benefit people. So I guess place to start would be like where and why did Tech Nottingham come from? Like what was your journey in creating this thing? It's been longer than 5 years.
Longer than 5 years, yeah. Cool. It's sort of in some form or another about 9 years old. So it's gone through a few incarnations. When I got my first job in Nottingham, which actually I've been a software developer for a little while, I got my first job in Nottingham, and I got that job because of a tech event called Geek Up Sheffield in Sheffield, and I'd met someone there, and then I got this job, and this job was like my developer awakening. Like I didn't realize that I thought I knew how to do development, and then I went to this company. I was like, oh no, they do it like this, and those are things that we would all agree are the basics, really. Like continuous delivery and test-driven development and good coding practices and good patterns and good working processes as teams. Like it was like my mind was blown. And then when I came to Nottingham, there wasn't a tech community. There just wasn't. It didn't exist. There was a sort of startup community, like to encourage startups, and that was nice, but not really a tech community for developers. And a friend of mine who worked there had started this one that was quite small. She started her own Geek Up Nottingham, and she was building quite a good following in that. And then she left Nottingham to move to Manchester and said, "Oh, do you want to just have this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I don't know." And there were like 7 of us in a pub. Like all of her built-in fan base just disappeared. And there were 7 of us in the pub.
This is Gemma, right?
Gemma Cameron. Cool. Yes. Who is still doing wonderful things in Manchester, in the Manchester tech community. And she also founded Hack Manchester as well, which is a fantastic event, or was. It's just finished. So,
up until very recently.
Yeah, only recently stopped running. That's a shame. But yeah, so this thing, it was just sort of 7 people showed up, and we all worked together. We just was basically drinks after work, and then I just kept running it, and it grew and grew and grew, and it was we sort of moved around to little venues, and sort of was okay for a few years. We didn't really know what it was for, and then it kind of had to reinvent at some point, and we realized, oh right, the thing, like I'd sort of got to a point where it needed money to run. It was growing to a point it needed some money. And I realized, people, when they go out for an evening event, they need food and drinks and stuff. I sort of have to figure out that. And it was growing reasonably well. And then and I realized, actually, the thing that's really good about this is the community aspect. Like I thought it was about talks, and I thought it was about like like learning about a thing that a person is speaking about, and actually that's like quite far down the list of what's good about it. Yeah, it's about, and I realize it's about community and about the people you meet, the people you connect with, and what you build, the community that builds around those things that we do. And so we kind of relaunched the whole thing. I really hated the name Geek Up because I didn't like the word geek didn't sound like what we were.
It's still in the process of being reclaimed.
I know. Well, it was a few years ago, so we were nascent at that point. It was still on people's t-shirts, and from Topshop. We relaunched as Tech Nottingham and moved venue, and it grew quite rapidly from there. We had started running an annual hackathon called Hack 24. We grew our organizing team. We tried some different events out, and then we ended up adopting Women in Tech Nottingham, and that is run by Tech Nottingham, kind of the organization. We founded our online community on Slack, which is really popular and continues to be popular and continues to grow like crazy. And and then now we're expanding into projects and what else can we, other things, other sort of targeted measures we can do to make Nottingham a better place to live and work in technology.
Yeah.
So,
there's
about 2,700 people there right now. So.
Which is pretty significant when you consider like the size of Nottingham, which is like it's a reasonable sized town in the UK, but it's not like one of the bigger ones. What is the population of Nottingham? Like 700,000? 289,000, even, yeah, so that's like a big chunk. Which, as you say, it's not all Nottingham people now, but it's still like a significant chunk.
So we always think like, we've met them all now. Like we've met all the developers, and like no, and then you go and you mean like, oh, there's a whole company, a massive company over there. We don't know any of them, and they start to drift in. And also Nottingham's tech community around and that has flourished as well, and we've managed to have form a good community around the different events that are going on around the city. So we have dozens of them now, but at the time there was nothing, and now there's loads and lots to choose from.
Right.
And they're online now as well, so anyone can go. So,
of course, I've seen some very entertaining screenshots from some of your online events. So there's a million and one places I'm going to have to crack up my notepad, or I'll forget the places I want to go. So I guess like I want to start kind of first of all, because I think this will take us through the Hacktoberfest stuff. So you mentioned you started to do projects. So I mean, you've had some projects as a community for a while. I think Hackbot has been going on for a long time. So the reason I want to go through this is like during this time of year, a lot of people, especially, are going to be focused on the communities around the open source projects they're interested in, whereas like Technotium is a very geographically focused one. And so there's this like almost the opposite scenario that a lot of people are going to be encompassing, whereas like you were formed around and you're shared. I guess your reason for coming together was a location, and now you're working on projects. And for a lot of people, it's going to be like going to projects and finding their people within those projects. It's interesting that like you've started as a location and are now creating projects. Like what kind of projects? Or I guess Hackbot is a good example, and that might be a good one to start with. But like, what kinds of other projects are you working on?
Well, I suppose by projects, I don't just mean software projects. So, Hackbot is a software project that we built around our hackathon, Hack 24. Hack 24 is like a big hackathon that happens in the center of the city. Like if you Google Nottingham and then there's a building that comes up, that's where we have it, and we have banners all around the city. It's sort of Nottingham's
I have to find a picture of the building because it's worth talking about.
It's beautiful. The Nottingham Council House, it's really lovely. It's the centre of the city, and we have big banners across the side that say Hack 24, and it's the point of it is to announce to the city announce to the city that you have a tech community, you can come and be a part of it, and also to announce to the world that Nottingham is a place where technology happens, and people do travel from all over Europe to attend. So the Hack 24 is a 24-hour coding competition, where teams of up to 4 people. There he is.
There we go.
So those big banners, they're 7 meters tall, and we have both of those. And
I've got to say, as someone who has sponsored Tech Nottingham in the past, the idea of having our logo on those banners was very fun.
It's good. It's really weird. It's very surreal to see a thing that's just a virtual thing that is now a thing in the world, and there it is. So they the sort of it's this coding competition, but the principle of it follows the principle of all of our events. Whereas the main thing we're trying to do is to build a community around what's happening,
right?
And the kind of ingredients of that are people who don't know each other need to talk to each other. Now you can't tell people that's what it's about, because nobody wants to. Everyone likes having had a good social interaction. Nobody likes the idea of going and doing that. So what we do is we build the event around creating those encounters and creating them meaningfully, giving people something to talk about, giving people the opportunity to interact, and taking away barriers to communication. And Hackbot is that. Hackbot is like is a fairly basic, mundane thing, which is just how do you organize your teams? How do you tell us what your team name is, what your motto is, what your projects are that you're doing, what you're submitting to? Like, we could just do it on our website, and that it wouldn't have any social benefit. But the point of that is it happens in the common chat channel that everyone can see. It happens in the run up to the event. Right. It happens in the run up to the event. So so when people are coming up with silly names for teams and silly mottos and stuff like that, that is giving people a reason to talk about talk to each other about the thing they're seeing. So they join. We get them to join the Slack channel really early on, as soon as they've got a ticket, and that has loads of benefits. It also reduces no-shows and stuff like other problems that you have with events. But the main thing is, by the time the event comes around, people kind of have a sense of everyone else who they are, and that makes it easier to talk. There's loads of other tricks we pull at the event as well that get people to talk to each other, but that's Hatbot's one of them. Cool. And it's built by the community as well. It has an API behind it and stuff like that, and we use that to generate passes and tickets and stuff like that and all sorts. So
awesome, super cool. So you mentioned there were like other projects, so I want to go from there actually, because something's interesting. You said that like this is a very intentional effort to get people talking to each other, and a little bit later on I want to touch on like, I guess, what like open source projects can learn from this, because I feel like we hear a lot from maintainers that it's a lot of work for them, and I think a way of looking at that is like they're kind of accidentally community managing without necessarily that being what their goal with doing a project is. Like you put a project on the internet and then suddenly you're managing a community, and that's not what you came out to do. So I want to round back around to that, but first, you said you had other projects that weren't necessarily code. Like what other kind of stuff I guess is your community putting together?
So we have when coronavirus hit, we coordinated the people in our community who had 3D printers, because there was a big shortage of COVID-19 face shields for frontline workers. So we coordinated the activities of those. We worked with another organisation in the city called the Nottingham Hackspace, and they did way more than us. But we managed to produce 1,600 face shields and get them to frontline workers locally. And like just that project sort of got to a point where it wasn't needed anymore, because the manufacturing and injection molding facilities locally kind of caught up. So that's why there's not a shortage. Basically, that stuff takes time. So we filled in a little gap there.
Filled in the capacity in the meantime. That's awesome.
Yeah. We have a folding at home team that's focusing on COVID-19 related. So folding at home is protein folding. It's basically, it uses CPU cycles on your computer to and donates them effectively to people who need to do massive data processing for good causes. And that one of the so we have our folding at home team, which is out of 350,000 teams in the world, we're in the top 1,500 now, so that's pretty good. We're happy with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
We just kicked off a new project recently, which is we're working with a couple of organisations, business in the community, and the Nottingham Community Volunteer Service, and we are refurbishing we're taking donated laptops, smartphones, and tablets, and we're clearing them down, refurbishing them, installing a standard software package on them, and getting them out to people who need them. There's a huge demand for devices right now, because
everyone's at home using them.
So kids are at home, and they might have one laptop for the entire family, or people might want to do training or learning or look for work. And all of that's gone online, and you can't do it in person, or it's much harder to do it in person, much riskier to do it in person. So there's a huge demand for donated devices, and there's the skills to do it aren't that common. So we're working with the Nottingham Community Volunteer Service. We're quite early. We've processed about 40 devices so far, and it's not bad actually. Just out of shot.
Oh, is that what you were throwing around earlier?
Here's a laptop. We're kind of processing those at the moment. What we're doing is establishing the method that it's going to work, the way it's going to work. We're trialing that with our community, with the volunteers in our community, and then we're going to roll that out at scale via the Nottingham Community Volunteer Service, and they can use it to build people's skills in IT sort of job skills and that sort of thing. And we can at that point take a step back and just sort of support those people and ensure the process is well documented, help organise them, answer questions, that sort of thing. That's the plan. That's at the moment, we're clearing all the devices ourselves and seeing how we get on.
Sorry, I was just watching Carol drop some messages. Oh no, Carol got herself banned.
How is Carol getting banned?
She's trying to post a link. Warning to the folks who have joined us: give me a heads up in the chat before you post a link, so that I can make sure the mod bot doesn't ban you. This is the link that Carol shared. Sorry about that, Carol. I look like I'm. Am I lagging a lot? I look like I am on stream. Folks watching, if I'm lagging a lot, please do let me know. Because Andrew looks crystal clear, but I look like garbage. So,
I thought I just assumed that was me. I have a tiny village internet connection. I was worried about that. In fact,
this may well be.
I told my wife to stop watching the stream so that because I thought it was our internet connection. I'll tell her she can start watching.
Oh dear. Well, that hopefully isn't me. Okay, cool. Carol says I'm alright. I have had internet problems today. I had a nightmare today where 15 minutes before I went on stream, my internet cut out, and I had to suddenly run down the stairs with a 20-meter long Ethernet cable. Okay, my audio is good, but my video is bad. That we can deal with. You just have to deal with worst case scenario. I'll turn my video off. Anyway, so that's super great, and I love that your community, like you've pivoted this whole community in COVID times into helping like your not only I guess your local community, but more specifically like with things like protein folding and whatever the world. So I want to kind of go from here into I think the main thing that we wanted to focus on today, which was like communities as like tools for learning. And I think this is something that I imagine you see a lot of because Tech Nottingham is also very well interfaced with all the student communities. Nottingham has a unreasonable amount of universities for a town of its size. And I know that you do a lot to support them as well. So you must be seeing like a lot of people kind of like learning with and for the community. So do you want to speak briefly on like why you think communities are a useful learning environment?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to cover there, but like, but the essentially the thing, what's the best way of putting it? I suppose the if you on a sort of micro level, I suppose I can tell you about something, right? I can tell you a fact. I can tell you a coding technique. I can point you towards a coding framework that's good for something we talked about, right? And you're going to learn, and you'll find out about that. But if I connect you with some people who are interested in things that are similar to you, or are pushing for a similar goal to you, who are at a similar level to you, or have just similar interests to you, then you are going to learn, and you form a connection with those people, and you get along with them. You are going to learn from them on an ongoing basis for a very long time. That is a much more useful thing to have in your life, to enrich your life as in terms of learning, in terms of sharing information with them, in terms of influencing, in terms of getting access to opportunities, meeting people you might want to start businesses with and things like that, start projects with, and all of that. Those are that's community gives you all of that, and just trying to go and learn one thing from one person just gives you that one thing, and so the community is like the trick, like it's the way in, like it's the way to sort of kind of achieve that at scale. Right.
Awesome. Cool.
The thing Carol's trying to post is the we built this for Hacktoberfest app, which Anna and Carol are directors of Tech Nottingham, and I think Anna worked on this one. And when we were promoting Hacktoberfest last year at Tech Nottingham and DDD East Midlands, this was a sort of a website to help people contribute to open source projects, and it was itself an open source project that you could contribute to, which I did. I did it on my phone when we were at DDD, just to prove how easy it was.
Sorry, my camera's probably mad. Oh, I think I fixed it. Yes. Okay.
Oh no,
sorry.
you're looking sharp now.
I'm back. I mean, I had to turn it on and off again. Let me open this because this is actually pretty cool. I had a quick look at this a moment ago. I can look down. So
I'm just telling my wife you can stream now. It was Joe's fault.
Sorry, Emma. There we go. Let me. I want this window. Boom. Hey, there we go. I love this. Is this an ASCII pumpkin going on here? So, what's going on? So these are posts.
Yes.
Cool.
So
And
um,
oh yeah,
it's a sort of demonstrator website,
right,
and so we had a competition running at a few
right,
of the events at Tech Nottingham and at DDD's Midlands, which is a conference that's run in Nottingham outside of pandemic times.
right.
And people who made contributions won prizes and were entering into bigger prizes and things like that. So it's a way of
Nice.
kind of encouraging people to contribute and get involved. And there's loads
Yeah.
and there's lots of posts on there that give you a guide to lots of good guides to contributing to open source and contributing to Hacktoberfest.
Carol was
Really.
jumping in saying that Carol built the contributors page and
I'm
Riz
sorry,
designed
Carol.
it. Oh, Riz. No. There's
I
Riz.
minimise your contribution, Carol. I'm sorry.
Oh, Boardfish. Oh, give Simon a shout out. Simon is the engine he works for us at Raise.dev now. Simon built
really?
the wonderful Raise.dev website along with our designer Eileen and John Britton as well. So yeah,
There's a connection.
wonderful. Yeah, awesome, cool. Thank you very much for sharing that, Carol. So you were talking about how like community is a great way, I guess, to like scale learning and via the connections and like people having access to this like a permanent source of information rather than just like a flyby like notion that something is good. So I guess like taking this out of a city and into an open source project, one of the things that is challenging for getting into open source, but especially this time of year where there's this kind of like mad rush to do it, is like wanting to get your pull requests into these projects and kind of like rocking up to these projects being like, I need to find a way to contribute. And I think it's the topic that I said to you that when we were chatting about it earlier, we've touched on a couple of times kind of accidentally in the show, that there's kind of a level to which before you just jump in to contribute, you should try and become part of that community. And I know you had some thoughts around like, actually engaging in communities before contributing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing to remember is when you're approaching, when you're looking for an open source project to contribute to, or you're looking to get involved in open source generally, remember that the people that are working on and building these projects, in order to do what they've done, and especially the more meaningful and bigger the project it is, the more this is the case. They've had to form a community. There is a community of people around that thing they're building, and that thing, right. And that community has it not only needs itself to, just as much as the software needs to itself change and evolve and grow and be fostered, but also they have ideas about where that code's going. They've been discussing it. They spend a chunk of their lives talking about it, and that is that might seem like something that's a bit intimidating, a bit off-putting. Like, oh, I just wanted to just make a change to the software, and that's fine. You can do that.
Yeah.
But that you're coming. Remember that you to put yourself in their position, you are not armed with the knowledge that they are armed with, and so that's where you might be get into a situation where, oh, I actually don't have. We can't accept this because it doesn't fall in line with this situation, this situation, and that's fine. There's an opportunity there though, because actually those communities represent the more valuable learning experience for you. So while it's a great learning experience to learn about how that code works, what the contribution you need to make is, and learning about that software and changing it, there's even more to be learned by getting involved in the community around that piece of software. So they can help guide you and talk to you about it, and you can find out what the attitude and the approach and the ethos is behind this piece of software, what the plans are for it, and you can learn about why those things are the case, and become a part of the contributors to that thing on an ongoing basis, on a long-term basis, and form connections that are going to give you a much, much more enriching engagement with that piece of software. So, oh no.
Emma's up here to troll you.
That's on me. I said that. Yeah, carry on
Yeah.
streaming, and so she did. That's fine. I'm definitely not trying to compete with Joe's beard. I would never do that.
I haven't had a haircut since March. I'm in top form, top condition.
Yeah. Emma's the one that cuts my hair at this point. So
this is your fault, Emma. You put me in the losing position. It's okay. A regular segment of this show has been the viewers telling me that I need to go get a haircut. So this case, I think this is a game that the viewers would prefer to be in the losing position with. Hi, Emma. Good to see you. Thanks for joining.
What I like is that your friend is probably just going to enter my screen on this side at some point.
I just get like a big fringe asset that just bounces around the screen.
But yes, but also there's another side to this, that community that exists around that piece of software. If you meet them and you don't get on with them, or you don't like the way they talk about their software, or they think about software, you don't like it. If that's not something that sort of fits with you, well, then that's also a learning experience, because you learn that, oh, maybe this project isn't for me.
Yeah.
And there's a thing called Conway's Law, and Conway's Law, to summarize, is that a piece of software broadly develops along the lines of the structure of the people who built it. And that's also true of their attitude and their approach. So if you don't like their attitude, or you don't get on with them, and that does happen sometimes, even amongst people who are making free software for people, then
I hadn't heard of this law. That's fascinating. Is that Conway is in Game of Life Conway, or a different Conway?
I'm not sure, actually.
I'll have to find out. I'm not going to bring up Wikipedia now. Too many streams this week have been me looking at Wikipedia. But that's a fascinating law. I'd never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's quite useful, actually. So it makes sense if you imagine you get in a workplace where you're working on two things, and you split the project into two teams. This team works on the front end, this team works on the back end, this team works on this module over here. This team works. Whatever structure, they're inevitably going to build the software along the lines of communication. So the lines of communication within that group, or the software is going to kind of reflect that. So often when I work in, I'm management scum. So often when I'm thinking about what the structure of the teams need to be, we'll start by looking at work with the architects and the developers and talk about what structure do we want the software to go in? Where do we think the natural seams are in the software that's going to be safe and scalable? And then we build the teams around that. So not to get too diverted on that, but the point is, if you look, put it this way, right? If it's if the team building a piece of software are a bunch of shitheads, then that's going to be some shithead software that they're building. Yeah. That's just how it is. That's how that works. So that's a good opportunity.
Totally agree with you, We actually had Brian Douglas was on the show earlier in the week, and he was saying as part of his maintenance ethos, he's like, I don't care if what you bring to the project is good code and good contributions. If you are a shithead elsewhere in your online existence, we don't want you here, because you're going to make an unwelcoming environment, and that's going to change the who can contribute to the project, which is going to change the diversity of the project, which is going to change the project in the end. So yeah, absolutely, I think you're totally correct.
It's like when you've been at work and there's the guy who's the amazing dev who's an absolute nightmare to work with, and everybody hates them. Makes everybody miserable.
Brilliant arsehole or whatever it is.
Brilliant arsehole. When you get those, always get rid of them. Get rid of them. It's not worth it. Yeah. But why would you accept them into your free open source project that you do in your free time for fun? Why would you? Why would you surround yourself with those people?
Especially when it's an open source project where these people, most of them, unless it's the corporate sponsored ones like React, people like Penelope Fippen, who we had on today, is devoted 2 years of her life to a project now that she's building by herself. And why would you spend that time that's already your limited free time with people that you wouldn't form a community with, right? That makes total sense.
Yeah, so they think about those human relationships, I suppose. And the other point is that one I made earlier about events. It's the same thing. The idea, I feel the same way.
Right.
The idea of going in and meeting some people is intimidating and is not a pleasant one. But the idea of having already met someone and had a positive experience, the other side of that, everybody loves that. Everyone's fine
Yeah.
with having met someone and having had a positive experience before, a positive connection. But all of us, to varying degrees, find the idea of meeting people and getting to know people and talking to people, even online, even via chat or via pull request or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
That's an intimidating idea.
Yeah.
But that is where the gold is. That's where the treasure lies.
Right.
That's where the real value of engaging with open source is. You get to be a part of a community, and you're going to learn so much. When you find that community that's right for you, you're going to learn loads. You're going to form fantastic connections. You're going to know them for the rest of your life. It's going to build opportunities for you. That's the magic of it. And so when you have challenges in Hacktoberfest where it's like short-term contributions and people who make a change and then disappear, fine, that happens, but those people are missing out on the point.
Right.
There's an opportunity to be a part of something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when there was like the spam issues going on last week, I had to tweet that like, hey, like it's easy to be down on Hacktoberfest right now, but like I know a lot of people who have really benefited and valued from this, and like the people who I'm talking about with that are like the people for whom Hacktoberfest was their gateway into a project that now they're like a major maintainer and contributor to, that has gone on to get them jobs and this kind of thing. So I guess on the other side of this, actually, which is, so we've spoken a lot about like being the person making the contribution and like it being scary to make that connection, or it being like a lot of work to make that initial connection. I think some of the reasons it's hard for people, especially this time of year, is that like we do have these people who are, like unpaid maintainers who are doing this in their free time. And so for them, it's a lot of people trying to connect with them, right? So I guess like as someone who is trying to enter these communities like right now, like what can you do to help bring people's walls down a little bit, to like help break into those communities so they know that you're not just like another like flyby contributor? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, the thing is, they know the difference between a flyby contributor and someone who wants to engage with the community. Those two motivations manifest themselves very differently.
Right.
And if the flyby contributor wants to know when you're going to look at their PR and stuff like that, like they're not going like, hey, can I talk to you about the community? How do you talk? How do you communicate? How do you agree on the path forward? How do you agree your coding standards?
Right.
What's a good area where I can get involved? What's some areas where you need support? Where who are some other people in the community I can engage with? Like those people who are approaching maintainers like that. That is not happening loads. That is not something. That's not the thing they're swamped with. The thing they're swamped with is just this point PR, this demand, this message, this complaint.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they struggle with. That's the thing people complain about like that when there's an influx of people like through Hacktoberfest. But if you want to separate from yourself and your pack, just have different intent and have thought about just have some empathy for the situation. Though these people didn't just arrive this month; they've been building this thing for years and they've invested hours and hours, and they need people coming into the project. The project needs that. Communities need people coming in.
Yeah,
they need people leaving and they need people coming in, because that's how they change and grow and develop over time.
Right.
And so they need that, and the maintainers will be aware of that, and will have and depending on the scale of the project, the bigger the project, the more that they'll have formalized how they deal with that situation.
Yeah, for sure. And you end up with things like Hackbot for automating all those things. So I guess kind of continue on that, I want to circle around to that thought I had earlier, which was like, so if you are a maintainer who has found yourself in this position now where like it's no longer just you working on some code, but you are actually effectively a community manager. In your experience, like going through all the transformations that your community has and starting it up and going from like and like being very intentional about how you grow that community, like what advice would you do you have any advice for them on how they can like make that something that they enjoy rather than it just being like an accidental side effect chore of their software? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. I mean, I think that for us the difference was, so we had events, and we had a community growing around that, and that happened. And then we realized was the value
Right.
how much value was in the community.
Yeah.
So part of that is understanding the important. It's tricky because you've got this popular repo.
Yeah.
And you started this thing because you liked coding and you liked building things and you had an idea and you started building it. And now it's a thing and people are helping you, and that's great. And that is actually what you wanted, because it needed to grow faster than you could grow it, so you brought people on to build it.
Right.
And then it grows faster and grows faster, right?
Uh-huh.
And then more people are involved and it's a bigger project and more people are using it and you're getting more stuff in. At some point, your job's changed, and it just has. Like, what this project needs in order to scale is community management. Like, it just needs that, because that becomes your weapon. Like, that's the sword you wield to make this software better. The sword you wield, you can make a commit, or you can manage a community that makes 1,000 commits. Like, that's the difference. Like, it's a scaling issue. But also on a human level, the community is the most. That is such that can be such an enriching and wonderful part of what you have.
Yeah.
And so, although the job's changed, it's not changed into a bad thing. It's actually changed into a really wonderful thing. Yeah. And there's a few things you can do to make sure it's a wonderful thing. I think that the key thing there is like, make it be what you want it to be.
Yeah.
So there's a certain point what you're going to have to figure out, and there'll probably be a few of you to do this.
Yeah.
Who the people who are kind of most invested in the project and spend the most amount of time on it, right? You're going to have to work out what your values are as a group,
right?
Like, what matters to us, and it's similar to the person you referred to earlier. That they're not going to deal with people coming in and being dicks around the internet and then coming in here, and being dicks all over our code base. That's part of it, right?
Yeah.
So having a think about, well, what's the environment we're creating here? How do we communicate? Have a Discord, have a Slack group or whatever. Doesn't matter. Have a way to communicate.
Yeah.
And then set rules about not just about the code itself and what's acceptable in a contribution, what's acceptable in PR. You have to do that anyway.
Yeah.
But also, like, what's acceptable in how we talk to each other and how we engage with each other. What's acceptable in how we conduct ourselves. And that's more than just have a code of conduct. Of course, definitely have a code of conduct. Definitely. But interestingly, when you're managing a community, the hard bit is not a crazy white supremacist barging in, or a huge troll being a dick to people. Like, that's not your biggest problem. Your biggest problem, and and people being nice to each other isn't a problem either.
Right.
Your biggest problem's in between. Right. Like, there's a grey area between someone coming into your community and calling people shitheads. Like, there's and just being like, the grey area beyond that, which is like, that's kind of annoying, or that's subtly, or over time, that continual behavior is unhelpful. So what's a good example? I'm trying to think because the community I manage doesn't have it works on open source things, but that's just part of it. I'll give you an example, right? Yeah. So we have in the Tech Nottingham Slack, we have channels for particular programming languages, right? And people who go into that, let's say people who are fans of PHP, they go into our PHP channel.
Yeah.
And they talk about PHP. That is a community in and of itself. They're talking about PHP. Just similar in a large open source project, you'll have like people who are talking about the front end, and that's a community in and of itself, or the people who are talking about, I don't know, the API or whatever. Anyway, the PHP group are talking about PHP because they use PHP and they want to talk about PHP.
Yeah.
And when they ask a question about PHP, ask a question of the PHP group, they want PHP answers.
I can see where this is going. Yeah.
So what they don't want is someone coming in and wanting to debate them about whether or not PHP is a piece of shit. Like, that's not what the PHP channel's for. Apart from the fact that's generally quite boring a thing to raise. But
Yeah.
also, like the PHP channel is there to talk about PHP,
Right.
and so they're a community that identifies themselves around that. They're not there to question. Now let's take that same example and apply it to our Women in Tech channel. Like our Women in Tech channel doesn't want to debate the basics of whether of how women are expected to be treated, or they've got good shared understanding.
Spend a lot of emotional energy explaining that already, right?
Yeah, like that's done, that's settled. That's not where we debate this. In fact, I don't really want that debated anywhere on the site, but that's not the point. So those are things where you'll see people wanting to be sort of like play devil's advocate, debate things and things like that, and you're like, well, it's not. They're not calling people shitheads, but it isn't nice here when they do that. Like this isn't. It doesn't be a place where people want to chat, people want to come back, people want to contribute, people want to stay and spend their spare hours. Like that is so. When you set out your values, set them out, be clear about them, enforce them, and keep them up to date. So and look out for stuff that like this is something I want. And it's fine, it's yours. So you can just go, no. Go away. So you can just do that. And that's fine. And usually, to be honest, almost all of those situations, we've got 2,700 people on the Tech Night Slack. We've had to ban maybe 2 people ever.
Right.
So but we do active moderation all the time.
Right.
And so the way that tends to work out is we'll have private chats with people. We'll say, hey, we saw you posted this message. Here's a screenshot. We deleted it. This is why we deleted it. This is how we'd like you to handle the situation in the future. And usually people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize.
Right.
How, and usually people want to talk about how they can improve their conduct. And that's the best possible outcome.
Yeah.
If they're crappy back, then we escalate. But honestly, that's very rare. Almost everybody they're just trying to find the way to behave and get along in this group, in this community. And sometimes, people spend a lot of time together and they get real close and they forget this is a place where 90% of people are reading but not writing, and things. Yeah. So the key is like set out your values, and keep them updated and enforce them. And although that feels like, that's a long way from writing code, that is actually enormously valuable, because that means you're continuing to get people join the community, you continuing to get contributors, and you continuing to progress your software. That's a scale problem.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. And actually the scale, what you said at the beginning about like moving up from like, oh hey, like you can make 10 commits, or in that time you can help 10 people make 10 commits, right? It's actually, we had back to Penelope, the slot that was on before this, Penelope was talking about when she got added as a maintainer of RSpec, that like she did like half a dozen pull requests, and then the maintainer was like, cool, here's the commit bit, you're in charge now. And like her job changed overnight to making sure that issues were well written enough for people to work on. And it's like, it reminds me of a phrase that I use all too often with clients, which makes me sound like a consulting idiot, but like it's force it's like you become a force multiplier basically, and you go from like you have what is possible for you to achieve to like you can help other people achieve that same thing. So I think that's a fantastic point. And also like again to making the community welcome long term is gonna really improve the quality of the software. If that's the main thing you care about, like it's having more people in that community who care about it is going to be the ultimate end. Cool, super. God, I had another question as well that's just completely flown out of my head. No, it's gone. There is one other thing I want to ask you though that was completely irrelevant to all of that. So earlier you said you mentioned a couple of times about like how constant new people coming into the communities, how it like changes and grows. I think one of the things that's especially true with software communities where, like decisions and the history of decisions about the direction of software is really important, and something that I've struggled a lot in communities I've been involved with as well is like new people coming into the community is really important, but also knowledge leaves the community all the time. And some of that knowledge is like stuff that I think as groups of people, we're really bad at capturing our shared knowledge and recording it, especially in software where you like literally people are bad at writing docs. Do you have any like do you have any experience with this problem in Tech Nottingham? I know a lot of like the people who've been in Tech Nottingham, like I just said hi to Jamie Tanner, who has been around forever, for example. But like, do you have any ways that like you kind of mitigate this? I think institutional knowledge loss is the buzzword.
In Tech Nottingham, it's less of a problem because actually we want the community and the nature of it to change, and that's and
to change with the face of the city.
And there's what the tech community in Nottingham in general was like when Tech Nottingham started is very different to what it is now. So and the fact that people are at home and stuff, Tech Nottingham's got to evolve, to support that. I think I've certainly dealt with that problem in my job because that is the same problem
people leave companies all the time.
The companies have, and the reality is the ideal is somewhere in between. You do. It's not the worst thing to have. You do need people to move on, and you need new people to come in and bring in new ideas. And the loss of institutional knowledge is a challenge. And you can solve that a bit with documentation, but you can also say, this might not be the biggest problem. So it doesn't have to. It's not the worst thing if it doesn't always work the way it was intended to work. Like if it evolves and changes, and what, if you waste a bit of time because you lost someone and you got a new person in and yet they have to learn it. All right, but at the end of it, you're going to have some better software.
Right.
I'm working on a project right now that is the result of some people leaving the company years ago, and no one knows who they were, and they were in a different country. And we had this piece of software that was just running, and it worked, and then until it stopped working, and then nobody knew
Amazing.
how. Yeah, that happens all the time. That's perfectly common, and that's not an ideal situation. And the problem isn't the problem. The problem bit is there in that middle bit where it stops working.
Right.
Before that, it worked. After that, we built something even better that's way better, much more suited to our requirements, and it works really well, and it's better than it ever could be, and it's given lots of inspiration for ways we can improve in the future. That bit in the middle is the problem, that kind of downtime, that little, that bit's the problem. And so the institutional knowledge is not the thing you're trying to retain as much as interruptions in service, I suppose, is the thing you're trying to avoid. So, if you have a community that's connected to the needs of the users, and you have a way of ingesting that and producing something new, and you have people who are staying with the project for, who are invested in the project and working on it. Those are the kind of things you need to make sure are okay, because you'll get over humps like that. And they'll be aware of things where software's getting a bit getting a bit stale, or needs, or there's not enough knowledge about this area of the system, and you can have targeted work around that. But there's a bit of documentation to explain why you do it, and writing code in a way that you can that documents itself, self-documenting code, and writing up what you think, what you were thinking, what was at a certain time is really useful.
Yeah, for sure. Getting people to read it is even harder.
But at least it's there and it exists. Jamie Tanner, who you mentioned, he blogs constantly, and it doesn't take him very long. He'll write something on the bus, back when he took the bus. He'll write something real quick. And sometimes I'll be talking to him, and a blog post will have gone out in the time that I was talking to him. But he does because he's effectively got documentation for all these different situations that he's come across. Oh, I was looking at this software. This was my thinking. I did this, and they're all relatively short. But he's got it to refer back to, and that's useful. Fast, quick contributions, and that's a good way to communicate. You don't have to be available for each other. Those are reasons why writing things down is a good idea. I mean, that's what we're talking about doing.
There's actually a blog post about this from Ben Bolter, who still works at GitHub and has been at GitHub forever, about why everything should have a URL, which is a GitHub principle. So it's how GitHub works remotely, which is literally every single thing you do should have a URL so that people in different time zones can access it, and we have company history and that kind of thing. But I think it's also it very literally applies to the other version of this that Ben talks about is if I'm asked a question more than once, I write a blog post about it, so it has a URL and like people can find it, which I think is like probably very literally where Jamie's at with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like sometimes I'll be
Yeah.
talking to him socially, and I'll get
Yeah.
given a blog post link. Like he'll be like, "Oh, I actually already did this. Here you go." Oh.
So much of what happened
We
on
were gonna
Twitter with
talk.
me interacting with Jamie last week now makes sense. Me and Jamie were in a tweet chain last week, and I mentioned like Jamie does a lot of homebrew. This was also posted in the chat. Homebrew website stuff, and one of the homebrew website things that's going around is like getting off of social media networks. Someone can explain this much better than I can, but there's a couple of people in my feed who like have this thing where their tweets are federated to their own site, and so the tweet comes with a link to their own site. And I said to Jamie that like I thought that link was him sending me a blog post, and then suddenly Tech Nottingham people appear being like, "Don't ask him to write any more blog posts." And now it all makes sense.
Yes,
I get it now. Okay, awesome.
yeah. So definitely like documentation. I slightly forgot my own point, but
sorry.
But it's a combination of document your thinking, but also don't worry too much. Like it's okay for people and projects to change over time and things to get lost. That's not the worst thing. You don't want downtime, but other than that, it's okay for things to kind of refresh.
And change is natural. Yeah, that makes sense. That's great. Awesome.
Yeah, like let that happen.
Yeah. So I am dry on questions. If anyone has the chat, it's a reminder that if anyone has any questions for Andrew, you can throw them at any time. But whilst we're waiting to see if anyone does have any questions, do you have any like final advice or anything you want to tell the viewers of Hacktoberfest before we let you go into the night?
I would say that if you're in that position where you're moving from being someone who was contributing some code to is now kind of managing a community of people, that's you developed a lot of skills built writing that code, but you're also going to develop a load of valuable, useful skills that are useful in life, like by becoming a community manager. Like that is incredibly useful in that is useful everywhere in life, because almost all of your interactions will in when your ability to engage and organize and influence are impacted by those same skills. So it's not the worst thing. You're going to learn a ton about how people work.
And actually it's funny you say that, especially like, so actually this is how we'll get back to your question, Matt. So Matt missed the beginning and asked how's Tech Nottingham dealing with COVID. So do you want to quickly run through like the different activities that you were doing again for Matt?
Okay, yes. All right, Matt, here we go. Right. We have moved all our events online, obviously. We have been starting doing, even with our events, we're trying to find ways to help people connect, continue our community approach to events. So try and find ways to help people connect. We do that in 3 ways. There's three parts to that recipe. You get people together, you give them the opportunity to talk, so either through virtual or physical proximity, and you remove barriers. No, wait. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, you give them something to talk about as well. So we also, that's why we've got green screens and stuff and camera equipment over here that you can't see. But that's so we've been doing like game shows and silly things on in our events, so that people just have something to talk about and have something to show up for, and that helps in that way. And also, so as well as doing that and going online and trying to not have the events not be the online version of our offline event. We don't want that. We want it to be its own thing. So we're working hard on that. Also, we produced 1,600 face shields for frontline workers by coordinating the people who have 3D printers in our community. We did the
laptops. Protein folding. Protein folding was the next one.
Protein folding at home. We've set up a folding at home team that focuses particularly on COVID-related investigations and research. That is donating CPU time to people who are doing those kinds of research and doing massive data processing for them. We are in the top 1,500 teams in the world out of 350,000, so that's gone well. And also, we have just started a new project where we're taking donated laptops, tablets, and phones. These things here, I've got them right next to my desk. Here's a laptop. And we are reconditioning them, clearing them down, and trying to create a scalable process for for clearing them down and getting them to people who need them. We've only done
Yeah.
40 so far, but we're kind of prototyping the process. And because that is a huge problem right now. People need devices. People who don't have the income to buy them themselves. Yeah.
So Matt asked about folding at home. Is the team just crunching, or is it also running as an ingest server for them? I have no idea what that means. Hopefully you do.
I don't know. I'll ask the folding at home channel.
Stay tuned, Matt. We'll get you that answer.
I think we were probably just crunching.
Cool.
I'm looking through the channel now. There's just lots of things I don't understand. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Let's say they're just crunching, because I haven't heard the words ingest server mentioned.
Cool. Yeah.
So if I just search Slack for ingest,
hopefully you don't get anything like weirdly graphic about food. I don't know.
we enforce our code of conduct. No, they are talking about food. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, nothing in the folding at home channel, but lots of talking about being careful. Oh, in the gardening channel, they're talking about ingesting things because they eat these plants.
I see. Okay. I had a question for you when we kicked that off, and I can't remember it. This is what happens when I host the 10 p.m. show, folks. My brain ceases to function. Brad, cool. That's been super wonderfully useful. Thank you so much for joining and giving so many, I think, great insights and tips of folks running communities, or people who are accidentally running communities. If people want to find you, have any further questions, should they rock up at Tech Nottingham? Where should they go?
Oh, okay. So we run 2 free monthly events. So they can go to. We have Tech Nottingham, which is this Monday. We have a talk on. Hold on. This Monday, our talk is about dealing with change management.
Boom! There it is. Oh, wrong chat. That chat. There we go.
There we go. So that is this Monday at 6:30, and we're also going to be doing. I don't know if it's on the. I don't know if I've updated the page yet, but we're also going. It's World Mental Health Day Thursday on Friday. So on Monday we're doing a lean coffee session after the talk about mental health for people working in tech, mental health issues. So you can propose a subject to talk about, and we split into rooms, and you go and we can talk about that, and we document it using online tools, and it's really cool and really fun. So you can join our event. We have a Slack channel which you can go get to at technottingham.com/Slack, or you can do that there. Oh, he's doing it. Here we go.
There.
Yes. You join our Slack channel. On the Slack channel, there is a Hacktoberfest channel, which is lots of people doing Hacktoberfest and supporting each other with contributions. If you don't know how to code, there is a Learning to Code channel. Join the Learning to Code channel. It'd be lovely to see you there. Lots of people who will help you if you have any questions. There is an event. There's a channel called the Homebrew Website Club, which is run by Jamie Tanner. Homebrew Website Club is I think I'm not sure if they're doing weekly or every 2 weeks, but all of their sessions are basically people who are building their own things. They're doing Hacktoberfest specials, all of their events. I think Jamie's on the chat. Jamie, just say if they're weekly or bi-weekly. I can't really remember.
He's on the chat, but he's too busy tweeting to be in Twitch replying to us.
He might be tweeting. He might be writing a blog post. He's probably doing both.
Probably writing a blog post. Yeah. Perfect.
Yes. So join those, and it's a very lovely community, very welcoming of new people. There's no technical requirements whatsoever for joining. If you are one of our rules at Tech Nottingham, one of the things we always say to people is there are no outsiders at Tech Nottingham. You can come from Tech Nottingham for any reason. You could be a student, you could be been in tech for years, you could just be interested in technology, or you could have wandered in there accidentally. It doesn't matter. If you're there, you're one of us. There are no outsiders at Tech Nottingham. So if you come in and say hello, people will say hello back. You'll be very welcome.
Lovely. It is a very welcoming community. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and for sharing your insights and also the wonderful things your community's come up with. I just remembered what I was going to say. So you said a really great point about community management skills help you in everything, and I was going to say that's very true. I know a bunch of people who do community work at companies who have started doing things like caring for whole buildings of elderly people during COVID, and like really spinning those community skills around into like real action during these times, which has been really exciting to see. And that was well off track for where we were going, but I remembered and I had to say it. Yeah. Awesome.
The ability to coordinate and organize people and keep them happy and keep them talking to each other is just useful just for getting anything done. You'll be good at organizing weddings. You'll be good. You'll be good at helping people, helping care homes and things like that. You'll be good at organizing projects in general. You'll be better at organizing things at work in your job, and also you'll be able to become really great at orchestrating the production of open source software.
Which, to bring that back to a very raise.dev message, if you were ever interested in the career path in management, it's a great skills to adopt, your leadership skills and that kind of thing as well. Awesome. So thank you again so much, Andrew. I will do the awkward shuffle where I kick you backstage now so I can do the wrap up. But thank you again for being on the show, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Awesome. Thank you again, Andrew, and thank you all for coming here and viewing. I saw lots of new faces in the chat today, so thank you for watching. A couple of reminders. This show is on 3 times a day, every day in October for Hacktoberfest. We have lots of wonderful guests every day. Let me do the schedule spoilers for the day. So our schedule for the rest of the week is at twitch.raisedev, twitch.tv, raisedev's schedule. Let me give you... I closed the tab because my internet connection was freaking out. So tomorrow, off the top of my head, in the morning slots, that's 4 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 12:30 p.m. European Time. We have Flacky, formerly of Mozilla, now doing freelance stuff. I'm super excited for that stream because we're going to do 2 things with Flacky. First of all, Flacky is going to walk us through an old Firefox OS app. Firefox, for those of you who don't know, was when Mozilla decided they were going to take on the iPhones and Androids with a phone operating system built just on vanilla JavaScript and HTML. It got sadly discontinued. It was super cool. But we're going to break open an old app and look at it from the perspective of like, how is vanilla HTML and JavaScript changed? What can we learn from this? It's going to be really fun. And then we're also going to hear from Flacky about like what his work looks like, because Flacky does something quite interesting. And as a like someone who does a lot of freelance myself, like lots of people always have questions to me about like how do you do like freelance dev stuff, and so Flacky's gonna share his journey there, which is another possible career path for folks who are interested. Second up, we have Cybrand. Cybrand is a developer advocate at Microsoft focusing on C++, which is, again, somebody who does a lot of DevRel, an unusual area to focus as a developer advocate. And Cybrand has a really interesting background in compilers and various high-performance C++ things, so I'm really excited to get their viewpoint and hear about their career. And then our last stream tomorrow is with Shana Matthews, who is on the education team at Microsoft, one of someone I've got to had the pleasure of hanging out with at a couple of education-focused events. And again, we're doing kind of like an old code dive with Shana. So Shana is going to take us through some of the C code that she wrote in school and talk about how she would change it nowadays, that she's continued to grow with C. So we kind of did this accidentally earlier in the week with Sukrit, actually, who was here, where we looked at some old code and like some code we wrote in the past, which is always like, which can be an embarrassing thing for some people. But now that we've grown, how would we improve that code? And it was a lot of fun. So actually a couple of our other guests were like, I would like to do that. So we're doing that a couple more times. So we've got Firefox OS tomorrow and C in the afternoon. Here's my schedule so I can bring up. So Friday to end the week, again, some super exciting shows. We've got Rain Leander from Packet Host in the morning, Ender Phelan from Red Hat in the 4 p.m. slot, 4 p.m. European time slot, and Chris Hunt, who's the bio he gave me. We'll talk more about Chris on Friday, but the bio he gave me made me laugh because so many people gave me big, well-formed bios. Chris gave me developer in Colorado. So the enigmatic man of mystery, Chris Hunt, we will find out. We will hear from him Friday afternoon. It's going to be a lot of fun. As soon as we're getting towards the end of this week, we'll start to talk about the schedule for next week. If you have a question about Hacktoberfest, or a question for any of our wonderful guests, or a question about anything we've spoken about, and you want us to answer it, you can submit it to raise.dev Hacktoberfest. We are constantly looking at the questions that are submitted on there and trying to make sure that we address them in the shows. When we address those questions, we will send you an email with the time that we're planning to talk about it, as well as sending, if you can't be at the show, we'll send you the recording as well. So if you have questions, you can ask them at raise.dev Hacktoberfest. Doesn't matter what kind of question it is. You can ask about, like, hey, I don't know how to get involved with open source, or you can say, I have this particular issue that I can't solve. I've got a bug. I've got an error message. Help, please. We will get on that question, and whether it means pair programming live on this show or finding a guest who knows how to talk about that topic, we will do that for you. So please go to raise.dev for Hacktoberfest and submit your questions. And a final shout out, Hey Kloss asked in the chat about this as well. So raise.dev, we are a coaching service essentially. So if you're trying to level up in your career, take your next steps in your career, get a promotion, get your first job, get your second job, do a career change, we are here to help you get the experience to do that. We are trying to solve in particular this horrible chicken and egg problem where all of the jobs you're trying to apply to like require you to have experience that you couldn't possibly get without first having the job, right? And you kind of get in this circle of like, oh, I need senior level developer experience to apply for junior level developer jobs kind of situation. So we're trying to help you get that experience in another way so that you can get the job that you want. We're in early access, and whilst we're in early access, we are completely free. You can spend time with our coaches, our wonderful coaches who we're bringing more on all the time because, as Hey Kloss said in the chat, we've had a wonderful amount of interest. Thank you so much, folks. And so it's taking us a little while to get everyone matched up, but you can go over there today and get in that queue. So I think that is finally everything from me. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry about the video problems earlier on in the stream. If you join us tomorrow, I will see you then. Otherwise, I hope we see you at another show. Have a wonderful evening and catch you at... This is me queuing up the music. Catch you at the next one. Bye.